hello there. Happy Sunday.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, what a week. Hello, happy Sunday. And thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. I am Robert Nasir. I am here with my beautiful, delightful co-host, Amy Nasir, and you know who you are.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Sunday, January 10th, 2021. That's right, it is 21.
You mean it's not 2022 already?
We're lucky that we made it to 21, not 2021. I think you said we should just call it 21. We're finally in a year that we can call 21. It is the 8th day of 20. The 8th day of 20. What on earth?
This is the 10th.
Oh, I remember what happened. I started working on my notes 2 days ago and forgot to interpolate, but all the rest of the numbers are correct. There are 357 days remaining in the year, 349 days until Christmas, 294 days until Halloween. But what you really care about, I know what you really care about, and that is there are 35 days left until Valentine's Day.
Oh.
If you haven't started your Valentine's plan making,
Yes.
or shopping for those of you in a presents mood,
Or
mood,
dating. Perhaps you can start dating.
or if you've decided to be on your own for Valentine's Day, if you haven't planned a date with yourself, get on that. 35 days until Valentine's Day, January 10th, 2021, on this date in 1901. In 1901, a gusher signals the start of the U.S. oil industry. The older folks will remember this, when oil was king. On January 10th, 1901, a drilling derrick at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, Texas, produced an enormous gusher of crude oil, coating the landscape for hundreds of feet and signaling the advent of the American oil industry. Those of us, who grew up on the Beverly Hillbillies will know exactly what that's all about.
That's in stereo.
The geyser was discovered at a depth of over 1,000 feet, flowed at an initial rate of approximately 100,000 barrels a day. Now think about that. 100,000 barrels a day. When people talk about petroleum and oil wells and oil drilling and now fracking, I don't think they realize the volumes that we're talking about.
The Earth is kind of big.
The Earth is kind of big. And there's scads, if I can use the technical term, of oil wells around the world. And this oil well in Beaumont, Texas, 100,000 barrels a day. Took 9 days to cap the well. Following the discovery, petroleum, which until that time had been used in the U.S. primarily as a lubricant and in kerosene for lamps, would become the main fuel source for new inventions such as cars and automobiles. This was 1901.
Wow.
Yeah.
What great times.
Yes.
Well, I should say it was great times for a lot of reasons.
It's amazing, again, how recent history is.
Yeah.
How recent everything that we take for granted is.
Oh, we have a mind meld here on the chat. And
yes.
Over on YouTube, Jennifer says, she says, Black Gold, Texas tea. And then
Linda Cordair says, Texas tea. Love it. Now we've all got the Beverly Hillbillies song running through our heads. Also, it's National Houseplant Appreciation Day.
Oh.
For those of you who are wondering, is there a holiday today? There's always a holiday. If there isn't one, we'll make it up. But no, it is National Houseplant Appreciation. Here's my houseplant.
Hi, houseplants over there by the bay window.
No,
There's a houseplant.
Here's my houseplant. See, those of you who've caught me on Zoom sessions over the last few weeks, you've noticed that there's this red plant in the background. This is my poinsettia. We talked about poinsettias already once over Christmas. I'm going to leave that there where you can kind of see it a little bit.
Oh, how nice.
Yes, so it's National Houseplant Appreciation Day. In mid-January, most of our various holiday decorations and Christmas trees have made their way out of our homes. National Houseplant Appreciation Day is on January 10th every year and reminds us we don't have to lose the freshness and vibrancy that plants bring to our homes just because the holidays have drawn to a close. Well, that's cool. I don't know. At first I saw that and I thought that was silly, but that's actually pretty cool. They go on to talk about how houseplants used to be a thing of the rich. Wealthy people would have houseplants and maids and servants to take care of them, but they would have houses large enough for plants and had time and energy to take care of fresh plants. And nowadays houseplants are for everybody. It's funny, this poinsettia I bought for $3.99. It was with the
Yeah.
little 4-inch pot plants. And this thing is just enormous.
Yep.
As I'm sorry for you podcast folks who don't see the video, but
Just imagine the most large poinsettia plant.
and one of the
you've ever
reasons,
seen.
one of the reasons I couldn't resist bringing it up, aside from the fact that it's National Houseplant Day, is those of you on the chat, what's your protocol for controlling gnats? I'm getting little bugs, little gnats.
Oh, I can tell you that actually.
And what is the solution to gnats from houseplants?
There is a thing called something like diatomaceous.
Oh, diatomaceous soil. Yeah.
Diatomaceous soil.
We've tried that before. Right?
No, it works. I just need to put it in there. I have a
Okay.
big bag of it. You can just sprinkle it
All
on.
right. Well,
It'll-
we've still got diatom ash powder downstairs, so I'll give that a shot.
Oh, we've got the powder, but we also have the little pebbles, and you can put the
Little
pebbles
Okay.
in there. Yep.
Forget I asked. No, if you think you have a better idea, by all means, enter it into the chat. So happy National Houseplant Appreciation Day. I'm going to go real quick here because we have so much to talk about.
Yes.
It is also happy 157th birthday to George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver, the most famous black scientist and agriculturalist in America during his lifetime, born into slavery, freed after the Civil War, the first African-American student at the Iowa State Agricultural College, before accepting a job from Booker T. Washington to teach at Tuskegee in Alabama. And for those of you who know the Henry Ford and Greenfield Village,
Like I do a little bit.
we have, of course, Amy works there, and we have visited the cabin that Henry Ford built in 1942 to honor his friend, agricultural scientist George Washington Carver.
Yes.
The cabin was based on Carver's recollections of the slave cabin in Missouri, in which he was born in 1864. Carver spent his career at the Tuskegee Institute advocating for new crops, such as peanuts, that would enrich both southern farmers and enrich the southern soils. So happy birthday, George Washington Carver.
George Washington Carver was a great, great man. He and Henry Ford were actually very good friends. Very good friends. And I'm just proud to have his cabin here in Dearborn, Michigan.
It's wonderful. Now here's a question for you. George Washington Carver, a very accomplished man, in some ways a heroic man, a great man. What side of the aisle was he on?
What do you mean?
Well, was he a Democrat or a Republican or a Whig? What was his political party?
George Washington Carver?
What was his philosophy? What team was he on? We have to know whether we should like him or not.
You're so funny.
What we're listening to this week,
Yes.
we'll get back to that wry humor in a moment. What we're listening to this week, I'm listening, and we did this once before, I'm listening to Andrew Bernstein's How to Be an Impassioned Valuer. Now, this can be hard to track down. I don't know that the Ayn Rand bookstore is selling the tapes or the CDs anymore, but you can find the short version on his website. It says part 1. It's just a 1.5, 2 hour version. You can find an interview he did with Steve Orma available on his website. Both of those links are in the show notes. If you're determined to hear the 6-hour presentation and you haven't already, it's not out there. Contact Amy and me. Amy and I. Contact I and Amy.
Either one of us.
Me and Amy. All 6 of us. And we'll set you up with the 6.5 hour version of that. If you're in our inner circle, and anybody who's listening to this show is. Eventually, we're going to post that on YouTube. I know Andy has said he's given us permission to do that, but I need to review that with him before I actually post it. 6.5 hours, and it's all good. It was all recorded. It was all recorded here at Studio Nasir.
In this living room we're sitting in right now.
Yes. Yeah, don't tell him how the... I'm sorry. Anyway. How to Be an Impassioned Valuer by Andrew Bernstein. Question. Who is mighty? We asked this question during our episode entitled Allies.
Yes.
Link in the show notes, and we're going to be talking about that today. Who is mighty? And the sages, the wise people have told us, he is mighty who can control their own emotions and make of an enemy a friend. He is mighty, who can control their own emotions and make of an enemy a friend. And I want to discuss and advise against doing the opposite. Making allies into adversaries. We talked about this during our episode called Allies. And at the time, there was a great deal of fractiousness going on.
Oh, this is in April, and
This was in April of 2020,
Yep.
about the time that the lockdowns were occurring. There was a lot of questioning over whether the CDC was doing the right things, the FDA was doing the right things, the President of the United States was doing the right things,
the governors
and the governors of the various states were doing the right things. And depending on which team you were on, which political team you were on, you may have been very critical of those on the other team.
yes,
Not in regard to their specific policies, but the specific people. In fact, I'm not going to repeat that episode, but I'm going to repeat a few points from it and then go a few places different. And Amy is going to offer all sorts of good advice.
yeah, exactly the same thing that I'm going to be doing is repeating a little bit of what I said back in April, but giving you some brand new content.
Brand new content. But in this regard, I'm going to start off by recommending Ben Bayer's recent Facebook post.
Oh, yes.
Ben Bayer, Professor Ben Bayer, had posted on Facebook earlier and to his friends, and me and 25 other people requested, could you make this public so we can share it? So you'll see it on my Facebook wall as well. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it starts off, what are the odds that half of the people in America are basically deluded and vicious, while the other half are basically well-informed and well-intentioned? Add to that, what are the odds that the good ones just happen to be on the side you chose? Probably long ago when you were young, probably under the influence of your peers and parents. Now, how did so many people on the other side get to be so bad? To explain it, you'd have to posit some combination of mob psychology as assisted by media manipulation. Okay, but then how would you explain so many people on the side you happen to choose are exempt from the same pressures and resilient in the face of them? Now, I'm not going to read the whole article, but that gives you a taste. It's absolutely worth reading. It's one of those things that I would have written if I was a better writer than I am. So, worth a look. Bad enough that we all too easily dismiss half the population. This is now me talking, by the way. Bad enough that we all too easily dismiss half of the population from any possibility of being virtuous, of having intellectual honesty,
Right.
of having any goodwill or good intent. Half the country is vicious, intellectually dishonest, does not have goodwill, does not have good intent.
So that's basically the idea that if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to assume that you're incapable of reason at all.
Right.
Yep. That's not cool.
But if that's not bad enough,
Yeah.
too many of us are then going to go out and do the same in regard to our own friends and allies.
Right.
The fractiousness that you're seeing within, for example, the objectivist community.
Oh, the lovely objectivist community.
I love the
How I love
objectivist
them.
community, and that's
And-
why,
During times that are much less complex.
yes, that's why I have something to say about that. We should not be treating our friends the way we would treat our enemies.
Right?
And we should not exaggerate how many people in the world are our enemies either. It was fun because online somebody had posted, well, my Facebook friends aren't friends. And I thought, that's unfortunate.
That's
Because my Facebook friends are
Yeah.
friends. Now, they're not friends that I would send $1,000 to if they were in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, a whole bunch of them are.
Yes, they are.
Including some people I've never met but have enormous respect for.
Right.
Yes, I have some Facebook friends I couldn't even tell you who they are or what they do. But in general, my Facebook friends are friends. And here's the thing. Your friends are friends, or they're a time sink. They're an energy suck.
Right, right. If they're not helping to be friendly and build you up, then why bother staying around if they're bringing you down?
That's right. As in a phrase you'll hear Amy and I use, they are a substitute for purposeful activity.
Yes.
You don't ever want a friend to actually just be a time sink, a substitute for purposeful activity to make it feel like you're doing something that matters.
Right.
Your time, even your recreational time, is far too valuable to waste on anyone who is of zero value to you. And that goes back to Andrew Bernstein's talk, How to Be an Impassioned Valuer.
Yes.
And his notion that everything is either for you or agin you, for you or against you. There are a lot of things that are irrelevant to you. But if you are spending time and capital, emotional energy on them, if you're wasting your time on them, they're against you. Because it's against you to be wasting time.
Yeah.
What do we say? Any day that you waste is one more that you've lost. To quote the late, great Chris Squire.
Oh, yes.
Yes. It's a song lyric, but you can tell he meant it.
What song is that from?
I forget. It's one of the newer songs from the Heaven and Earth album.
Okay. We'll look it up. Because we have that power.
Yes. So I really want you, ideally, this could be your homework for the episode.
Okay.
Listen to the Allies episode number 6. The link is already in the show notes. It'll be posted right after the show. Before I go any further, do we have any comments?
Not
Has
yet.
anybody told us how to keep the gnats off of our house
Oh,
plants?
actually, yes. Holly did chime in. She says, my mom taught me to put a tiny amount of dish soap in water to get rid of the bugs in plants. So that basically what that does is
Yep.
it basically changes the surface of the water to be sticky, and oftentimes you attract them by putting a little vinegar or red wine in with the water.
Yep. We've done that
And a
before.
little bit of dish soap.
And that worked. It wasn't perfectly effective, but it got a lot of them. A little dish of vinegar and red wine. Vinegar and red wine. No, that's salad dressing. Red wine, vinegar, and soap.
Yes.
Vinegar and red wine sounds good. We haven't had dinner yet. Sorry, folks. We're going to be talking about food for the rest of the episode. But actually, going back to allies, when we did the episode, I had highlighted some notes and information from Bob Berg's book, Adversaries into Allies. Remember, we had talked about Robert Heinlein says that, you should always look for opportunities to turn your enemies into allies. Understand that they don't think they're a bad guy in their own eyes. So once you understand that, you can either turn them around or you can kill them without hate.
Sounds so Klingon.
So, well, I think he has the same thing in mind that Bob Berg has in his book, Allies and Adversaries into Allies.
Yes.
And I reviewed a lot of the points from the book, but I'm just going to fire off a couple real quick because they apply so much to what's happening this week. When he talks about the 5 principles of ultimate influence, understanding the basics of all human action and interaction. So his 5 principles were: control your own emotions. And he has a dozen bullet points in that one, but the most important one, number 1, you need to respond versus react. And we talked about how that means think, not emote.
Right.
And my version of that is communicate from a place of mastery. Mastery of the subject, but more importantly, mastery of yourself. If you find yourself, I've got to respond to this, and you're not really crafting your response, you're not curating your response, you're not managing your reaction, you are not the master in that situation. That's a great time to step back Ask yourself what your purpose is. We talked about purpose. And ask yourself, if I was exhibiting mastery in this case, if I was really in charge of myself right now, what would I be doing? What would the best version of me be doing in this circumstance? And that's what I've been trying to do this week. Not always successfully, but hopefully mostly successfully. And that's what I want for everybody out there. There have been so many arguments and unfriendings, and that's the least of it. Just the animosity that's been built up, and for no good reason.
Yeah.
You know, he also says, understanding the clash of belief systems. Realize that we all have ingrained belief systems that influence our thinking and actions. Seek first to understand the other's belief system. Now, you don't have to agree with their belief system. Trouble is, people jump in thinking they understand it when they really don't. Or understand it at the most superficial level. Or just understand what's wrong with it. If you're reading essays and articles by people you oppose in order to find the parts they got wrong, you're doing yourself a great disservice. And you're not going to get anywhere with whatever argument you're having. I also posted a link in the show notes to our episode, Politics and Love. See, we're going to be doing a politics episode sometime soon. We've done a few of them. We did Politics and Love. Mm-hmm. We did one called A Protest. We had protest signs. That was fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was fun. But we're due. We're due for another politics episode, and there have been some really bad things happening lately in the political realm, so we need to do that. But in the meantime, I encourage you, this can be part 2 of your homework assignment.
Part 2, listen up.
Listen to episode 17 on politics and love. Mm-hmm. And you'll remember we framed that around the 3 languages of politics, the 5 languages of love. Drew comparisons in order to kind of help make them stick. You know, there are 3 languages of politics. The language of the liberal or the left. I think they refer to that as the progressive, because liberal can be taken as classical liberal or contemporary liberal. Mm-hmm. But the language of the progressive, which remember was always along that axis of those who are being taken advantage of or experiencing injustice, and those who are being treated fairly. And then you have the conservative axis, which was always framed in terms of civilization versus barbarism. If you want to understand a conservative, realize he doesn't care that much about justice. He does care about justice, but his important thing, he will sacrifice everything else to maintaining civilization versus barbarism, and whatever he sees as assaulting or attacking civilization. And then the third axis, which was the libertarian axis. All the libertarians care about is liberty, freedom, compulsion. Did you leave me alone, or did you compel me against my will? And if you can understand those 3 axes, it's much easier to look at your opposition and realize, oh, that's where their priorities are. And you might think that's wrong. And, you know, obviously I have my opinion about which of those 3 axes are primary. But if you want to understand somebody, and even find that ability to cut them some slack, so you can actually have a conversation.
That would be a good one to listen to, for
Episode
sure.
17, Politics and Love.
For sure.
Link in the show notes.
Yes. I also put in the chats as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, Amy, you've been thinking about how to treat your allies and how to treat people in general.
Yes.
What have you been thinking? Because
let me start off on a good foot. Because you know, I actually had a misstep this week and lost a friend. But that's okay. I actually, I wouldn't say made up, but I certainly checked in, and for myself mainly, and just to make sure that, you know, because basically I called somebody something and it wasn't polite. Even though...
Did you use the kind of language we don't use on the show?
That's correct. I use that kind of language.
Lose our G rating there.
So so I went ahead and after all the things that were said that were extraordinarily unpleasant, I went ahead, and even though I still feel like I was in the right in a lot of ways in terms of politeness, I apologized. Now, that's very rare. First of all, it's very rare for me to actually do something where I need to apologize for, but I went ahead and most people would say, well, Amy, you swallowed your pride. Actually, no, I elevated my pride. That's what I did. And I went in and I said, I'm sorry, I could have handled this better. And, and that's basically the main gist of my note.
What note?
Oh,
you sent a note
message
to this person.
To this person.
Oh, okay.
Who I had a row online with.
Okay.
And even though I wasn't the one necessarily in the wrong, I went ahead.
Does that matter?
It doesn't, because I just want to make sure that I'm checking myself. As they say, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I don't want to make a habit of that kind of banter, and I just wanted to do something for myself and for any good part of the other person that exists. I'm gonna do that, and yeah. Robert's looking at me like, man, Amy, you're so mean.
Not at all. Not at all. One of those bits of wisdom that I think I probably invented because I haven't heard anybody else say it.
And I should say this,
is that you should treat people not as they deserve,
yes,
but as you deserve.
Yes.
As you deserve to treat people.
Exactly.
I
didn't deserve to treat people that way.
You use your standards, not theirs.
Right. Yes.
Sometimes that means giving people better than they deserve, but that's not the point, is it?
Right. That is correct. Yes, so I elevated my pride. I didn't swallow it. But I should say that I actually did one really good thing, which was I let somebody know, I should say them, that I loved them, even though I disagreed with them. And that felt good because it's true. It's true that I love them. I'll always admire them. Don't care if they become a Buddhist. I don't know. Maybe if they became a communist, I might, I don't know, not like them as much, but I think I would still like them.
Yeah, you probably have to find out what they mean by that.
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of like American Christians. I don't really regard them as Christians because I know what the Bible says.
Yes.
And there are very few American Christians who live the Bible. They live an American kind of happy version of the Bible.
Yes.
So when somebody in America tells me they're a communist, I want to know what they mean by that before I roundly condemn them.
Right. Right. So
and I don't mean to be pedantic. I'm going to the point I think that we're making.
Right. So anyway, that was my best of myself for this week. That I went ahead and I didn't leave a row hanging up in the air, and I also didn't that I actually did assert myself and tell somebody that I disagreed with them, but I made sure that they understood what our friendship stands. And speaking of Facebook,
yes,
I'm the more I'm on Facebook, the more all these years that I've been on Facebook, and I've argued with people and all of this nonsense, all this foolishness. I realize I really love Facebook. To be with friendly people. That's what I like about it. I like to share information and jokes and whatever, and just bring out the best in myself and other people on Facebook. And it's a great platform to set up all sorts of wonderful things, including, Zoom meetings and things like that. And going back to April, I wanted to just kind of reiterate something that I said back then, which was, sometimes when I'm feeling insecure in myself, I might be procrastinating, or something is bothering me, or perhaps I'm beating myself up for some reason I haven't articulated yet, which does happen. That's why it's really good to introspect and journal. I go onto Facebook and I get into arguments. It gives me a momentary illusion that I'm engaging in purposeful action. And so I kind of expanded on that idea. Facebook it can be a substitute for productive activity or purposeful action or rewarding activity. And for me, it gives me kind of a sense of the same kind of anxiety and stress that I would get out of actually solving problems or untangling difficult situations. And certainly makes me feel like I'm being productive. And in the meantime, a lot of time is wasted. And then I realize that, and that makes me feel even more ashamed and not happy with myself. So, your little confession hour with Amy Nasir here. So it's sometimes hard to be good to myself. And it's, I forget exactly if it was Ayn Rand who said this, but she probably did, that being selfish sometimes is the hardest thing a person can do. To be good to yourself, to know what you need, and to give yourself it, to be your own best friend. That can be very, very hard to do. And
if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Yes. So, and I got to thinking about Facebook and everything, and I just kind of wanted to share with you guys that, it is something that you go on there, and sometimes it does feel wonderful to win an argument, whatever that means. But, it doesn't really foster friendships in the way that it's used by most people. And some of my friends, they go on there and they consider it a way to spread ideas, but they're often finding themselves in an echo chamber. So really, is that the best way? That's the question. And while you're doing all of this stuff and you're feeling validated and you feel like you're kind of visible with people who are like-minded, you're not really getting to know them. You don't really get to know people, and so I've been asking myself, what parts of Facebook is actually giving me value. This year I've learned that the thing that I most enjoy is interacting with friendly people. Arguing doesn't enrich my friendships. It doesn't bring out the best in me and doesn't bring out the best in them. And it's almost impossible to have a really rewarding intellectual discussion on Facebook. I'm sorry. It just is almost impossible to do that. Maybe people have achieved this, but I haven't. And, another point is that, unless you're a writer or a professional philosopher or an influencer or a journalist or anything like that, and arguing or spreading ideas is what you do for a living, I can understand going on there and arguing with people, posting articles that you wrote and hashing it out with folks, if that's of value to you. But really, at this stage in life, for myself, and I think for a lot of people, Facebook doesn't enrich friendships. So if you're looking for it to do that, there are ways you can. And so I'm going to reveal to you what I have learned this past year, kind of how to hack Facebook and make it work for you. How can you shape your experience on it to make it pleasant and fun and rewarding and friendship building and all of that. I created 3 different Facebook pages that I invited my friends to. The first one was the Halloween spookiness and goodie exchange, which was all about Halloween, which is super fun. Then the Christmas delightfulness and card exchange, which was equally as fun. And the couch to standing workout friends. So that's my workout page where I go on Zoom with my friends and I just guide them through exercises, which helps me exercise. And can I have a drum roll? I will be soon launching, and my working title is Valentine's Day Fun and Second Halloween.
Valentine's Day Fun and Second Halloween.
Yes.
So it's just like Oh, we had our first breakfast, but what about second breakfast?
Yeah, so second Halloween is important.
So watch for that on Facebook. Valentine's Day fun and second Halloween.
And of course, we've had our various Zoom events and gone to other people's Zoom events and things like that to discuss, Ayn Rand's fiction and philosophy and other things to catch up with people. So that's been absolutely wonderful. And I think that is, those are the kinds of things that you can use. Make your own Facebook page, for goodness sake. If you have a hobby that you really love and other people seem to be possibly interested in it, you can go ahead and start that.
Reach out.
Reach out.
Reach out in the darkness.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, Amy found that one-hit wonder and played it for me.
From 1967, I think.
Memories.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh dear. Yeah. So, and one other thing I just wanted to bring up is, this has been an extraordinarily difficult week for a lot of people. Really despairingly difficult. And, one of the things I posted on my Facebook was, 7 ways that you can basically keep your mental health intact while you're experiencing a traumatic event. And I have to say that is something that's really, really important. And I know that a lot of objectivists out there, they don't really take a lot of stock in their own feelings or other people's feelings, sadly. And I just wanted to let everybody know that it's not a weakness.
But emotions are your reward for action. They are the reason.
Thank you, Objectobot.
No, seriously.
Yes, I know. You're,
I mean, we're in it. We're in it for the feels.
Yes. No, you're right. I thought you were going to
never
say that. Say the opposite of that.
No, we don't use our emotions to figure stuff out. We figure stuff out so that we can have emotions.
Yes.
But the point is, you don't say, oh, because emotions are not tools of cognition, I shall not have emotions.
Right.
Just the opposite.
Right.
What are your tools of cognition for but to sustain your life?
And I see the underlying implication for a lot of people in these argumentative exchanges on Facebook is that emotions are not tools of cognition, therefore I'm going to ignore yours.
Yes. There's no reason to be nice.
Yeah, no reason to be nice.
All that matters is, was I right and were you wrong?
Right. And newsflash, everybody, if you think that way, you may want to reconsider it.
Yes, it's not true in your own psychology, so it's probably not true interpersonally either.
So very true. So lastly, I just want to say, you know what? If you got angry this week at people, if you started on a unfriending rampage or said something really angry to somebody or even something very hurtful to somebody, I should say this, and this is part of making mistakes. You can make amends. Even if you were in the right, you can be a good role model for other people by apologizing for what you were not particularly happy with yourself for.
Yes.
That if we could do that, just that, everywhere around the world, it would be so great. So yeah, if you did this and that you're ashamed of yourself for whatever these valid reasons are, I gotta tell you, don't let that define you. Don't let that further isolate you from other people. Don't let that make you think that people saw this bad part of me, and of course now everyone's going to think that way of me. You are larger than whatever you did this week or whatever happened this week. Don't think that what happened defines you in the eyes of those. So in other words, if for the people who are actually your friends, don't think that they think that way of you, because you know what? They may have thought, Amy was acting a little bit unlike herself for a moment, but I still like Amy, Isn't that amazing? That's usually how that works. So again, reach out, don't isolate, don't assume the worst, and try to bring out the best in yourself.
Wonderful. Yeah, see, it's so much easier for me because I don't mind being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind if somebody says, Robert's wrong. I don't like it if somebody says, Robert's not a gentleman. Robert's unkind. Robert's cruel. Robert's insensitive. It's important to be right. Facts come first. But, there's times I'm going to be wrong. There's times I'm going to make mistakes. I haven't run into one yet, but it could happen. I'm much more concerned that I'm a gentleman. Incidentally, I found the part of the Fountainhead you were thinking of. This was actually Peter Keating speaking.
Oh, goodness.
It's often Ayn Rand's secondary characters and even villains who get some of the best lines.
Mm.
But Peter's talking to Katie in this really heartbreaking sequence.
Oof.
Probably get choked up trying to read it. He said, for 6 years I thought of how I'd ask your forgiveness someday, and now I have the chance, but I won't ask it. It seems besides the point. I know it's horrible to say that, but that's how it seems to me. It was the worst thing I ever did in my life. But not because I hurt you. I did hurt you, Katie, and maybe more than you know yourself. But that's not my worst guilt. Katie, I wanted to marry you. It was the only thing I ever really wanted. And that's the sin that can't be forgiven. That I hadn't done what I wanted. It feels so dirty and pointless and monstrous, as one feels about insanity, because there's no sense to it, no dignity, nothing but pain, and wasted pain. Katie, why do they always teach us that it's easy and evil to do what we want, and that we need discipline to restrain ourselves? It's the hardest thing in the world to do what we want, and it takes the greatest kind of courage. I mean, what we really want, as I wanted to marry you. Not as I'll want to sleep with some woman or get drunk or get my name in the papers. Those things, they're not even desires. They're things people do to escape from their desires, because it's such a big responsibility to really want something.
Robert, you're making me cry.
Oh, sorry. Ayn Rand is making you cry. I won't read Katie's answer because it's all heartbreaking at that point.
Oof.
But yes, that is the point.
Yes.
It's hard to be selfish, as you said, in the sense that it's hard to live up to your highest values. Mm-hmm. And, on Facebook, it's easier to go on a rant than it is to be ruthlessly, scrupulously your own best self. You thought I was going to say rational. No, to be your own best self.
Yeah.
To handle the situation the way you believe it should be handled. To exert mastery over your own conduct and behavior and state of mind. Even I have managed to go on a rant a few times.
No.
And it doesn't bring out the best of my character.
Right.
And as a result, it doesn't bring out the best of my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, we've been going on for a bit, and I haven't even gotten to the Post-it Note of the Week.
Oh, the Post-it Note of the Week.
Because we're doing callbacks to some previous episodes, and I talked about this. And I'll explain the connection. Your Post-it Note of the Week. For those of you who have video can see this. I have a Post-it note that says values. Values. 1, 2, 3. When I did the values episode, I talked about this on the 4th episode of this podcast. I did a whole episode on the idea of values, and my idea that values are primary. We'll talk about that again. But straight out of Andrew Bernstein's How to Be an Impassioned Valuer.
Ooh.
The homework assignment that week, those of you who've been around will remember this, and I'm sure you did it, and I'm sure it enhanced your lives. Your homework assignment for the week was to come up with 10 top values of yours. Write down 10 values, things that really matter to you. And do it on paper, don't just do it in your head. And then pick out the top 3. Your top 3 values are the 3 things you've got to have, got to achieve, got to accomplish, that you on your deathbed will not feel your life was complete if you didn't actualize, create, experience these values. And then the next step was, with regard to each one of these three, and that's why I've got a Post-it note this week. With each one of these three, ask yourself at the end of each day, did I honor those values? Did I move forward? Did I work toward them if they're not values you're already living? Did I not experience them if they're values you've already attained or achieved? So that's my Post-it note for my week. Now, my value sheet actually says, and their camera can pick that up there, 2.5 STN.
Oh, yes.
My first value is, and I mentioned this before, in 2021, I'm going to drop 2.5 stone, 35 pounds. That one's been going well.
Yeah.
And today I had my 4th bike ride of the year.
That's
I'm
so
determined
great.
this year not to lose my bike riding chops. Those of you who know us know we live in Michigan. In Michigan, where we have, this is cool, in Michigan we have this thing called winter, and it's actually a winter. There's snow and ice and sleet. We tried to take a walk in the park through the woods the other day, yesterday, right?
Yes.
And we couldn't because the trails were covered in ice, and I mean ice rink ice. We should have worn ice skates for a hike.
Or cleats, you know.
Cleats,
Yeah.
snowshoes, something. So, despite that, I am riding my bike every other day. And by the end of the year, and really much sooner than that, I will drop 35 pounds. I know I look good. I look svelte. Actually, my jacket's already fitting better this week.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, well, in this case, it's 8 pounds in 10 days. The first 8 pounds are easy. Anybody who's ever gone on a crash diet knows that the first 8 pounds, the first 10 pounds are easy. The second ones are like having your teeth pulled without an anesthetic. So number 2 on my value sheet is 100K. By the end of the year, I have to figure out how to earn $100,000.
Okay.
The explicit was my top annual salary when I was in IT. So it's a little more than 100K, but for now I'm going with 100K. And then my number 3 value is 10X. And what 10X means is I'm going to expand the reach of this podcast
Yes.
tenfold. And that's where you come in. Well, where you come in is I want you to create your own value hierarchy, then put your top 3 values on a sheet of paper where you can check in every day and say, am I moving toward those, or am I fully experiencing them if I've already got them? But where you can also help, like and share. Like and share. Go to YouTube. I know most folks watch this on Facebook, but go to YouTube, youtube.com/Robert Nasir. Like the show if you like it. I mean, don't like it if you don't like it. But of course you like it because Amy's here, and Amy is immensely likable, and I'm okay too. Go to youtube.com/Robert Nasir. Like the show. Share the show if you're not embarrassed to share it on your Facebook wall, your Twitter feed, wherever it is that you share the things that you share when you're in a sharing mode. Like, share, subscribe. We need to get our YouTube numbers up.
Yes.
I've mentioned before that within an hour after this show, there will be over 100 views on Facebook. And there will be a couple dozen on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's gotten a little better in the last couple of weeks, but not much. YouTube, we need your help with that. So hook us up, help us out. Thank you so much. I really genuinely appreciate it, and the check will be in the mail. Actually, I can't bribe you by putting a check in the mail because what I'm really doing is asking anybody who wants to contribute to the show to help out. So if you're thinking, what I want to do is not just like and share the show. I want to put some folding money in Robert's pocket. I want to make sure that this show is a success. I want to make this his primary income.
Oh, yes.
If you're thinking that, and I know you are, I can hear you over the waves, patreon.com/Robert Nasir, or Facebook message me for a PayPal address. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
The patrons we've already got inspire and like motivate us. If we ever have a week, too much coffee. And I didn't even finish this cup yet. If we ever have a week where we're challenged in thinking, maybe we could take a week off, which we have not done since we started on March 1st, 2020. Looking at my list of Patreon subscribers tells me, really, I shouldn't take a week off. I mean, these folks are putting up $5, $10, $20. They're expecting 4 shows a month.
That's right.
5 on a month with 5 Sundays. And that sustains us. Thank you so much. If you're not already on there, but you have a few dollars that you can afford to part with every month, well, enough of that. But thank you so much. Lastly, if you have any questions, comments, and especially if you have any suggestions for future shows, there's a group on Facebook called 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. Join the group, comment, let us know what you think. You can also email directly. Let us know in the show comments for the show going on right now. Email me, call me. My telephone number is actually on my wall. Someday I'll have to pull that down when we are famous and I'm getting phone calls all the time. I could change my phone number, but I don't change phone numbers very often. Hell, I still use the same email address I was using on AOL 25 years ago, which people have mocked me no end for. So that may change. But in the meantime, any show suggestions, get them to us. We need that information.
Jennifer says, you can have a vacation.
You can have a... No, I can't. I have to be here. Actually, how cool would it be to do... Because we did this once before for about 2 minutes. How cool would it be to do a Facebook Live from, wherever, pick your poison, or your perfume in this case. We could go to Hawaii. Mark and Kayla just got back from Hawaii. We could go. We never went to Hawaii. We could go to San Francisco and go to the Ghirardelli Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we have not done that together.
No.
So, you know what to do. Give us your ideas, give us your wisdom, give us any love you want to give us, or tell us what we need to change. Tell us where we need to improve. You guys go on too long, whatever it is. And with that said, as we reach the end of 5 minutes here.
Yeah, before you say that, I just want to thank everybody for keeping good company with us.
Yes. The show title comes from a song by Brian May from the Queen album, A Night at the Opera. The song is called Good Company. You should listen to it. It's super charming, super cute, but there's a life lesson in there too. And the chorus goes, take care of those you call your own. Mm-hmm. Take care of those you call your own. Be good to your people. Mm-hmm. Take care of those you call your own and keep good company. And that's what I wish for you this week. I wish you each success. I wish you each flourishing. I thank you for joining us. I wish you good company. And as always, the both of us, Amy and I,
that's right,
we wish you love.
Mwah.